Hello, it's Boyd from AIRBOYD. Got a couple updates this week. I did go get the 2080 Ti just in time for NVIDIA to release their new 30 RTX series. It's going to be a little while till I can get my hands on one anyway, so it's probably fine because I really wanted to get the hang of getting the settings sorted out on this. Going to take the Cubcrafter X Cub up today out of Salt Lake City. I know for a fact that the weather is pretty good up in Salt Lake today, because the wind warnings have been out there, and just wanted to see how we're doing with the live weather in some of the other situations. I was busy flying this week and didn't get a chance to do what we're doing. I'll catch up on some of the frame rate information later on. And of course, I've got the Steam load, and I was caught out by some of the antivirus software this week, erasing my flight simulator executable. Had it happen 2 or 3 times in a row, and finally had to completely turn off the antivirus and start from scratch. I do find the Steam loads a little slower every now and then, but I think I've got it all back together. So going back to the previous computer, I did return my original build and get an NZXT build replacement. Something significantly bigger, got a 1000 watt power supply. Did end up going with the Intel because it was in stock, and I really just wanted to get something to keep trying to do these videos and updates as they. So now I'm running a 2080 Ti Republic of Gaming, and we'll see how it goes. I've been able to get sort of a hybrid 20. Yeah, I mean, almost full 4K. So I took the Ultra and tweaked it down. One of the things I do notice in this is there's far too many trees. And I love the trees, but the amount of time it takes to render the trees and what it's doing is just pretty gnarly in the background. There's just a lot of places where it doesn't work. In Los Angeles, it seems like all the palm trees end up basically looking like cypress conifers. There's just kind of a mix there, and of course it's rendering all that. I flew into Safeco Stadium in Seattle last week, and the field up there has about 6 inches of growth right now, which I'm pretty sure isn't actual. So let's just make sure here, because this is one of the reasons I wanted to come up here. Live weather today, that is correct. So let's go ahead here and let's see if we can get the ATIS on, because it's supposed to be pretty darn windy up here. 124.75 is the digital ATIS for Salt Lake City. Oh, I guess it's going to start over again. I wanted to see the printing here just so we could. There we go. Wind 03859, that's 59 knots. They're looking at gusts up to 80 miles an hour today up in Salt Lake, and I wanted to see how that translated to the real weather on the airport here. So we've got ground speed up here, and we should be able to do something that was always a lot of fun here in the old days of flying. That's that you take off and you go ahead and go into slow flight and fly backwards. So this wind should be enough that it's certainly strong enough for that now. So we're going to go ahead and set that back. You know, I'll do a split. We'll keep the map there. Why not? Take a view outside. And of course, one of the things you notice immediately is the windsock here. That's sort of, I'm going to go with light and variable. Not exactly shy of 60 knots. Take a look outside. Clouds do very slowly look to move in the right direction, so let's go ahead and see if we can get this up and going. Power it up first, let the brakes off. Let's see if we can get up a little higher in the seat there. There we go. One more. There, I can still see ground speed. Alright. Push over. Oh. Now, it does not seem like it's asking me for very much crosswind correction whatsoever. So I'll get off the ground probably a little early there. Flaps up, and then I'm going to trim it for this kind of straight out thing here. Now, I am not being blown off course by the wind. $03859. So let's go ahead. We'll put all the flaps out. We'll we'll turn into where the wind should be going and see if we can get this to go backwards. Or at least pretty slow. Well, that's not looking too bad. Let's go ahead and take a look outside here. Now this looks pretty much like I'd expect the X-Cub to look anyway in slow flight, so let's go back inside, take a quick look down here, and oh, there we go. So my ground speed showing 65 knots, so the wind's not really translating well yet. There's still a few things like we keep talking about week after week here that will be added on or need sorted out as time goes on here. Really hoping to fly backwards today, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and turn around the other direction and watch my angle of attack there. Back towards the airport. Let's take a look inside again, and ground speed's increasing, but not what we would expect with a 60-knot wind out here. So not too far off. Anyway, nice day in Salt Lake. We'll try some other locations today. Right now, the smoke up in the Fresno area, Central Valley, even San Bernardino, Los Angeles is pretty heavy. We'll see how that translates. Now, getting back to talking about frame rates, because that has become sort of a passion for everybody around here. You'll notice that I am easily holding well over 40 frames per second right now, and I am doing this in low 4K at home. We'll go ahead and hit escape here. So this is the classic shot that everyone's trying to get when you're flying around somewhere on the planet. You want one of these showery days with the wind, the downpours, the sun streaming through, looking for the rainbows and all the things that they put in here. So I'll go ahead and skip ahead up to that in just a second here. And basically what I've come down to with this is I either do in the smaller planes, and I'll get to that in a second, ultra, and I wind down the grass and the trees, and sometimes I'll take some of the realism down of the buildings or the renderings. For the most part, I'm getting a solid 30 frames a second just doing this alone. Now, this doesn't work in the large planes, and I don't really know why. The same video that I had before where I sit there in LAX, get into the 747-400 on 2.5 right, drops down 15, 18 frames per second, getting airborne, still have trouble with it. So I'm not sure what's overloading it yet, and I'll keep working on that. But if I go down to very high end is actually what it's called, not very high. High end is one lower than ultra. Seem to get pretty stable 30 frames per second or higher. If I go down one more, easily getting 40 frames per second or higher, and that's in 4K at home on my monitor. So here we go. I was trying to see if I could get the visual here as you go into the rain, the beads of water coming across the windshield. They're a little hard to see in a lot of the daylight shots in this. And of course, this is the double rainbow that everyone's looking for. And I get this a couple times. I'm actually able to come back around again. Of course, you can see the the nice blue skies in the background. End up having to look sideways out here to see those droplets kind of go along the edge. Hard to see there, and I'll do one more quick look back at this in just a second here. Look outside. Frame rates jump amazingly when you look straight down. Get up to 50, 60 frames per second easily doing that. So trying to find the rain shaft here as it's coming up, and you can see it doing pretty good. Get the odd drop there, and there's a drop starting to come across the glass now, which is pretty cool. A little hard to see them rolling along the front. They just sort of really just kind of blend into the sky and the clouds. It's just something that happens on this. Came around to the second pass. As you can see, the rain has actually eased up a bit. Both the rainbows are still there. You can just sort of see the second rainbow up there. And you can see the sun, the clouds, everything all kind of looking together pretty much as it would in real life. Do a nice slow turn to the right here, coming back over Salt Lake City, leaving the Great Salt Lake, which really doesn't have that much water in it right now in real life. But remember, the Bing data here is a few years old. And we'll do this slow right turn here, and you get to see sort of the horizon and the sun interacting with everything. The last of those raindrops kind of going across the windshield there off the right, You can just see them just on the edge there where the clouds are on the mountaintops. Coming back around in the Salt Lake Valley, should be able to pick up downtown the airport here coming in soon, and then we'll get the sun may or may not catch it here. I can't. Nope, it's probably gonna be a little bit behind here, so we're probably not going to get the lens flare that you get. You can see there as I power back the engine and push it back up again, you can see the flare in the prop. Now, turning off the other traffic using generic models and taking off the name tags does get you a small boost in speed. I had this on today as I was making the right turn here, head down the river into Washington's Reagan Airport. You can see the ground there coming around. This is sunrise, so I just went back, basically took live weather and went through a couple days until I found sort of a nice sunrise that I liked. And you can see that the fog is sitting there over the city. There's the sun just peeking up there. Classic lens flare, which you can also turn off. That's just another setting, but you know, it's this GoPro under the plane shot that just really kind of gives you that bird's eye look that works out pretty good. Again, using the X Cub, it's just enjoyable to fly, and I find it very easy for sightseeing, which of course is pretty much what it was designed to do, flying around at 80 some odd knots. Still using the Thrustmaster Airbus yoke for this. It's the only stick yoke that I have, and it really handles this aircraft very well, and realistically also works pretty well on the pits, even though the pits does have quite a turn radius. Coming over the bridges here and see the traffic, and that's sort of morning in DC as we come around. And we'll speed that up a little here, get just down the river, do the full turn here into the airport, and see if I can do a landing. Getting a little bit better at the 3-point landings here in the Cub, but it is very forgiving, and it's pretty much what it's designed for. Heading over the 14th Street Bridge and everything down there, very familiar to you that fly into Washington all the time. See the approach lights, you can see the runway end lights, the beacon. Now, the beacon is still on pretty much all day long in most of these. I haven't figured out if that's on purpose not to help find the airports, but it works out pretty good. Wide over wide on the VASI, get that sorted out, keeping in mind, of course, that we are underneath the aircraft, so that view will be wrong. Here's the park that you can sit in and watch the aircraft approach. Start to pick up everything there. Crystal City off to the right. We just passed the Pentagon, of course, and all looking pretty realistic. Frame rate drops are significantly better now with the 2080 Ti than I was getting the 2070. Coming to runway 19. See the windsock off the left there. VASI's much improved than they were from the preview version. And hey, that's about it. As close as I'm going to get the center line. Of course, a little bit off on the rudder pedals there. It is a little twitchy. So there we have it. There's a nice early morning approach international. Jump on over to New York now. Still in search of some weather. And this is some of the issues we had with the low clouds or fog earlier on the preview versions. From a distance, it looks like the cloud is literally coming out of the ground like a fire. And you can see that plane landing there right now on one of the 2-2s. And as you get closer, it turns more into fog and light cloud like it's supposed to be. But from a distance, it really looks like it's coming out of the ground. So there's definitely been some improvement on those clouds, in my opinion. For those of you following my videos, you know that I like to bring it down low and find something like a river or some other terrain that we can follow to really push the GPU up and see what happens with the frame rates as they start going along. So throughout this whole video, I'm able to keep 30-40 frame rates per second, and it's just this ultra setting tweaked down a little. Now, where it does start to fall apart is as we get towards the end of the video, and I'll jump around the city a little bit here just to show some of the different views. As I get into Grand Central Park, once again, it's the trees. And I'm not going to say I hate trees, but the trees really seem to be a point where the GPU bogs down in this significantly. And for a lot of this, when you look at the meters running in the background here, most of the time that this is running, it's showing pretty much 98% load on the GPU. And you can see heading down the river here, looking pretty good. So we'll see if we can get under some of the bridges here, adjusting my seat a little there. I still seem to have trouble occasionally with Tower Bridge. I'm not sure what part of the aircraft is hitting some part of the bridge that isn't visible there to me. But as you can see, these are fully rendered for flying under. Maybe not recommended, but certainly doable. And you can see the cars up there going up and down the wires that hold the bridge up. So a few things. Oh, yeah, see the tail quarter there bounced off the surface. It's okay, we'll keep going. All looking pretty good, pretty realistic. Sun's tracking around, getting the reflections. I've got the reflections inside. All the instruments still look pretty good, so we'll go ahead and hit here through the Brooklyn Bridge, then I'll probably skip it ahead to the Statue of Liberty. You see one of my other videos earlier where I've actually flown around the Statue of Liberty. I did that in a Piper when I was a flight instructor. I'd still do it today. Probably better off doing it nowadays with the lack of air traffic up there. There we are, heading down through southern New York. There she is, the Statue of Liberty. I'm going to go ahead and probably let the rest of this run out. So if you're interested in watching the rest of this video, it's just basically going to be me flying up low over Manhattan all the way up New York to Central Park, taking a look at how things interact with each other. And it's actually pretty interesting. Even though I couldn't get the wind and the turbulence in Salt Lake City from the wind today, I am getting buffeted pretty strongly flying through the city. And that's noticeable in the game. So I like to think that upgrading from the 2070 to the 2080 definitely did good, at least on my system. I'm still having a few of the troubles that I had before, one of them being that when the air traffic control goes back and forth from the airplane to ATC and back, and I'm using the AI to do that, I still get a lot of frame lags from that. I'm not sure what's causing that. Since I have a completely different computer now, it's obviously not that. So I'm going to go with it something in the game itself. Maybe it's the Azure cloud. There's some kind of delay there. So I've been turning that off a little. I turn off the aircraft every now and then just to free it up, and anything else you're not using for the flight. So for the rest of this, other than when we get up to Central Park, I'm probably not going to save very much. Just going to let this run out because it was a pretty good little flight today. The weather was decent. Just to give the idea of the kind of frame rates you can get at 4K using a 2080 Ti. And again, this isn't just to make this a lengthy video. It seemed like a pretty cool little flight up here. Good photogrammetry. You can see MetLife there, H&M. Of course, we just went past Empire State Building. You can see the glass reflections, the lights on inside the offices, air conditioning units, the traffic down on the street. And as we fly over Billionaires Row here with some of the newer buildings that are coming up here at the end, we hit Central Park, and this is exactly where my GPU basically gives in. And it starts to stutter. We drop down to 8 to 11 frames per second as we hit the park. My best guess is it really is just the rendering of the trees. I keep turning the trees down. Like I said, I don't want to be a tree hater, but the trees really seem to be kind of hitting this here. And as soon as you come back around to the city again, get right at the edge, the trees pop off, boom, frame rates come right back up again. So it's, you know, something that apparently only an RTX 30 is going to fix, being able to deal with trees. Almost daily, I think I'd rather just have a tree off button, but of course it really helps the way it looks. So I'll keep messing with the settings on these. But you can probably get 2080 for a pretty good price used right now because the RTX 30 series came out, and I do believe it's a significant increase over the 2070 for doing something like this. Of course, if you're willing to wait and spend the money, the RTX 30 is probably going to get you there as well. I'm doing my best to see if I can get at least a demo model ahead of time. Otherwise, I'll be on the waiting list to see if I can get full 4K 60 and HDR out of this. Jump ahead here. We'll go into LaGuardia Airport. We'll take a landing here, and you can see the bridges here not fully rendered as they are on the other side. There's a tree, of course, sticking out of the bridge. Have I mentioned trees? All right, enough of the trees. So we'll head on down here to the river, and you can see the abundance of greenery that has been added here between these buildings. A lot of these will probably be existent trees or bushes, just not of this size. And it looks like the fog's kind of come in here over LaGuardia as well, so it looks like the two airports were probably reporting foggy weather, at least low ceilings, and that is translated into those areas specifically. I did see this when trying to find the smoke and overcast that happened earlier in California this week. The weather didn't translate that to much of Southern California, so the real outside skies were completely obscured. Sun was, red, orange, and see, there's one of those frame rate drops. And looking up into the sky, it was dark. Went into Flight Simulator. Each of the airports was showing some clouds, but as soon as you got off the ground, it disappeared. Most of Southern California wasn't covered. And of course, smoke of something of that size and magnitude, I don't expect to be right 100% of the time. It's a third-party weather service, and their job is not to actually get everything exactly right, but it is to try and get actual weather and put it in. So, a massive change of system like that, I don't really expect. Looks like white over white again. I did not, I didn't see on the final here. I turned down the radio, so I'm not sure if there's anybody else coming here. So with any luck, this is usually not the prevailing runway here at, there we go. See, you never know when someone's coming the other way. Anyway, that's my update here. Until I'm able to get further along here, I have to go to aircraft training for the next couple weeks, so I'm going to miss out on doing some of this for you. I was hoping to get into some live streaming, get into Q&A. We'll try and get that done later. Of course, if I'm able to get myself a RTX 30 unit, I'll be jumping back on this as fast as I can. Let's just cut a shortcut over here. I mean, what's the point of having an X Cub if you can't just go across the grass? That's it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll try and get to your questions again as I'm able.